The train wheels screeched against the metal tracks as Clara Whitman pressed her face to the dusty window. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. 3 more towns. She had to get off 3 towns before Cedar Falls, where Ezra Hutchins waited for his new bride. The very thought of his cold, gray eyes made her stomach turn. Clara clutched her small carpetbag tighter. Everything she owned in the world fit inside that worn leather bag. A few dresses, her mother's silver locket, and 7 precious dollars. Not much to start a new life, but it had to be enough when the conductor called out Willowbrook. Clara jumped up so fast she nearly dropped her bag. This was it. This was where she would disappear. The platform was nearly empty when she stepped off the train. The afternoon sun beat down on the small Kansas town, and dust swirled around her long brown skirt. Clara watched the train pull away, taking with it her old life and any chance of going back. Fear and freedom mixed together in her chest like oil and water. She walked slowly down the main street, trying to look like she belonged there. The town was smaller than she had hoped. A general store, a saloon, a few houses, and at the end of the street, a small white church with a tall wooden cross on top. Clara had never been particularly religious, but right now, that church looked like the safest place in the world. The church door creaked when she pushed it open. Inside it was cool and quiet. Wooden pews lined both sides of a narrow aisle that led to a simple altar. Afternoon light streamed through plain glass windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Clara sank into the back pew and finally allowed herself to breathe. She pulled out the marriage contract from her pocket. The paper was wrinkled from being folded and unfolded so many times. Clara Whitman agrees to marry Ezra Hutchins of Cedar Falls, Kansas, and to serve as his wife in all matters household and personal. She had signed it 3 months ago when she had nowhere else to go. Her aunt had died, leaving her with nothing, and marriage seemed like her only choice. But then came the letters. Ezra's letters had started kind enough, talking about his farm and his plans for their future. But as weeks passed, his words grew colder, more demanding. He wrote about how wives should obey their husbands without question, how she would not be allowed to visit town without his permission, how she must never speak unless spoken to when. His friends visited. The final letter had arrived just 2 days before she was supposed to leave for Cedar Falls. In it, Ezra wrote that he had already spent the money for her train ticket and wedding dress on farm equipment. She would have to find her own way to pay for these things, and he would keep track of every penny she owed him. Clara realized then that she was not going to be a wife. She was going to be a servant, or worse. "Child, are you all right?" Clara looked up to see an elderly man in simple black clothes walking toward her. His hair was white as snow, and his kind blue eyes crinkled with concern. This had to be the pastor. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to intrude. I was just ... Clara's voice trailed off. What could she say? That she was running away from a marriage? That she had nowhere to go? Nonsense. God's house is open to everyone. The old man sat down in the pew across from her. "I'm Pastor Williams. And you look like someone who could use a friend." Before Clara could answer, a small voice piped up from the front of the church. "Pastor Williams? Who's the lady?" A little girl with bright red curls and the biggest green eyes Clara had ever seen came skipping down the aisle. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, but she moved with the confidence of someone much older. "This is ... Pastor Williams looked at Clara expectantly. Clara Whitman." The little girl stopped right in front of Clara and studied her with the serious expression that only children can manage. "You look sad and tired. Are you hungry?" Clara's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly. She hadn't eaten since early morning, and even then it had only been a piece of bread. The little girl nodded as if Clara's stomach had answered her question. "I'm Lucy Patterson. Come on, I'll make you some soup." Pastor Williams chuckled. "Lucy has appointed herself as the church's official greeter and cook? Don't let her age fool you. She makes better soup than most grown women." Lucy took Clara's hand without asking and started pulling her toward a door at the side of the church. "We live in the little house behind the church. Well, Pastor Williams and I do. My mama and papa went to heaven last winter when the fever came through town. Clara's heart squeezed tight. This little girl had lost everything, just like she had. But unlike Clara, Lucy seemed to have found peace with it. The pastor's house was tiny but clean. One main room served as kitchen, dining room, and sitting room all at once. A narrow ladder led up to what must be a sleeping loft. Everything was simple but well cared for. Lucy bustled around the small kitchen like she had been doing it for years. She ladled soup from a pot that had been simmering on the wood stove and set a bowl in front of Clara along with a thick slice of bread. "Lucy has been my helper since she came to live with me," Pastor Williams explained as they ate. "I don't know what I would do without her." Clara watched as Lucy ate her own soup, her little legs swinging from the chair that was too tall for her. This child was caring for an elderly man while dealing with her own grief. It made Clara's problems seem smaller somehow. "Are you going to stay in Willowbrook?" Lucy asked suddenly. Clara nearly choked on her soup. I don't know. I don't really have anywhere to go." Lucy's eyes lit up. "You could stay here. We have room, don't we, Pastor Williams? And I could use help with the cooking and cleaning. These old hands aren't as quick as they used to be." Pastor Williams looked at Clara carefully. "Are you running from something, child?" Clara felt her cheeks burn red. "Was it that obvious?" Yes, sir, I am." "We all run from something at one time or another," the pastor said gently. "The question is whether we're running toward something better." Lucy reached across the table and patted Clara's hand with her small one. "Don't worry, you're safe here. And if you stay, maybe we could be like sisters. I always wanted a sister." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. When was the last time someone had shown her such simple, honest kindness? "I would like that very much, Lucy." As the sun set outside the kitchen window, Clara helped Lucy wash the dishes while Pastor Williams read his Bible by the firelight. For the first time in months, Clara felt something that might have been hope growing in her chest. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if Ezra would come looking for her. She didn't know how she would make a living or where she would go from here, but tonight she was safe. Tonight she was welcome. And tonight a little girl with red curls and a big heart had offered to be her sister. Maybe running away didn't have to mean running alone after all. Clara woke up to the smell of bacon frying and the sound of Lucy humming in the kitchen below. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back, the train, the escape, the little girl who had offered her soup and sisterhood. She had slept in the church loft on a pile of quilts that Lucy had arranged for her. It wasn't comfortable, but it was safe, and that was more than she had dared to hope for yesterday. Clara climbed down the ladder to find Lucy standing on a wooden crate at the stove, carefully turning strips of bacon with a long fork. Pastor William sat at the table, his white hair sticking up in all directions and his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Good morning," Lucy chirped, as cheerful as a spring bird. "I made breakfast." "Well, I made bacon and eggs. And there's bread from yesterday." Clara rushed to help, but Lucy waved her away. "I've got it. I always make breakfast. Pastor Williams says I'm the best cook in all of Kansas, but I think he just says that because he's hungry." Pastor Williams chuckled. "Lucy, you know I never lie in God's house." As they ate breakfast, Clara watched the easy way Lucy and Pastor Williams talked to each other. It was clear that the little girl had been taking care of the old man as much as he had been caring for her. Lucy reminded him to take his medicine, made sure he ate enough, and even straightened his collar when it was crooked. "Pastor Williams," Clara said carefully, "I want to thank you for letting me stay last night. But I should probably find somewhere else to go today. I don't want to be a burden." The old man's eyebrows shot up. "A burden? Child, you're the first person to sleep in that loft in over a year?" And Lucy was so excited to have company she was up half the night planning all the things she wanted to show you. Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "I want to show you the garden behind the church and the place by the creek where the best wildflowers grow, and the tree where I saw a family of raccoons last week." Clara's heart melted a little more. "That sounds wonderful, Lucy, but I really should—" "Stay," Pastor Williams interrupted gently, "at least for a few days." Truth is, I could use the help. These old bones aren't what they used to be, and Lucy does far too much for a child her age. Clara looked at Lucy, who was trying not to look too hopeful but failing completely. Are you sure? I don't have much money to contribute. Money isn't everything, Pastor Williams said. Sometimes what people need most is just someone to care. After breakfast, Lucy grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her outside to start the grand tour. The first stop was the vegetable garden behind the church. It was bigger than Clara had expected, with neat rows of beans, tomatoes, corn, and squash. I planted most of this myself, Lucy said proudly. Pastor Williams helped, but his back hurts when he bends over too much. We grow enough vegetables to feed ourselves and share with folks in town who need extra food. Clara was amazed. This little girl was not only caring for an elderly man and cooking meals, but she was also growing food for other people. Lucy, you're incredible. Most children your age are still playing with dolls. Lucy's face grew serious for a moment. I had to grow up fast when Mama and Papa died. But Pastor Williams says that sometimes hard things make us stronger, like how fire makes metal stronger. They walked to the creek next, where Lucy showed Clara the shallow pool where she caught minnows and the fallen log where she liked to sit and think. Clara found herself relaxing for the first time in months. There was something about Lucy's simple joy in small things that made the world seem less frightening. Clara, Lucy said as they sat on the log, their feet dangling in the cool water, can I ask you something? Of course. What were you running from? Clara hesitated. How could she explain to a child about marriage contracts and men who wanted to own women like property? I was supposed to marry someone I didn't want to marry. Lucy nodded as if this made perfect sense. Was he mean? I think he would have been, yes. Then you were smart to run away. My papa always said that mean people stay mean, no matter how nice they pretend to be at first. Clara was struck by the wisdom in those words. Your papa sounds like he was a smart man. He was, and Mama was smart too. They taught me that family isn't just the people you're born with. Family is the people who love you and take care of you and want good things for you. Lucy looked at Clara with those big green eyes. I think you could be family if you wanted to. Tears sprang to Clara's eyes. I would love that more than anything, Lucy. That afternoon, Clara helped Pastor Williams with his sermon preparation while Lucy worked in the garden. The old man's hands shook slightly as he wrote, and Clara could see that simple tasks were becoming difficult for him. Pastor Williams, how long have you been the minister here? Clara asked. 43 years come October, he said with pride. I came here as a young man, full of fire and big ideas. The town was even smaller than just a few families trying to make a life on the prairie. And Lucy has been with you since winter? His expression grew sad. Poor little thing had nowhere else to go. Her parents were good people, but they didn't have any family left. The county wanted to send her to an orphanage in Topeka, but she begged me to let her stay. I couldn't bear to see her sent away from the only home she's ever known. Clara felt a chill of worry. What will happen to her when if something happens to you? Pastor Williams sighed heavily. That's what keeps me awake at night. I'm not getting any younger, and Lucy deserves better than an old man who can barely keep up with her. She needs a real family, a mother and father who can give her the life she deserves. That evening, as they sat around the small table for dinner, Lucy made an announcement that surprised them both. I've been thinking, she said, cutting her potato into careful small pieces, and I have an idea. Oh? Pastor Williams raised an eyebrow. What kind of idea? Well, Clara needs a place to stay and people to care about. And we need help taking care of each other and the church. And I need a sister. Lucy looked back and forth between them. So I think Clara should stay here with us. We could be a family. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Lucy, that's very sweet, but nothing, Lucy interrupted, which was unlike her. You said mean people stay mean. Well, good people stay good too, and you're good people, Clara, I can tell. Pastor Williams was quiet for a long moment, studying both of them. Finally, he spoke. Lucy has a point. We do seem to fit together. Well, and God works in mysterious ways. Maybe he sent you here for a reason, Clara. Clara felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died, when she was Lucy's age, the feeling of belonging somewhere. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," Lucy said firmly. "You're family. At least, you're if you want to be." Clara looked around the small, simple room. The furniture was old and the house was tiny, but it was filled with more love than any mansion. "Yes," she said softly. "I want to be family." Lucy jumped up from her chair and threw her arms around Clara's neck. "I knew it! I knew you were supposed to find us." As Pastor Williams watched the two of them hug, Clara caught a worried look in his eyes. She had a feeling that their peaceful little family might not stay peaceful for long. Somewhere out there, Ezra Hutchins was probably looking for his missing bride. But for now, in this moment, she was exactly where she belonged. The little girl who had lost everything had somehow found a way to give Clara everything she needed. And Clara was determined to do the same for Lucy, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Clara had been living with Pastor Williams and Lucy for 2 weeks when her past came knocking on the church door. She was hanging laundry behind the house when she heard the sound of horses and angry voices from the front of the church. "Where is she?" a harsh voice demanded. Clara's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. Ezra Hutchins had found her. She crept around the side of the building and peeked through the church window. Ezra stood in the center aisle, his tall frame blocking the light from the door. Next to him was a man wearing a sheriff's badge. Pastor Williams faced them both, his thin shoulders straight and his chin raised. "I'm afraid I don't know who you're talking about," Pastor Williams said calmly. Ezra slammed his fist on the back of a pew. "Don't lie to me, old man." "Clara Whitman, my bride. She was supposed to arrive in Cedar Falls 2 weeks ago, and the train conductor said a woman matching her description got off in this town." Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She had to get away, but where could she go? Then she remembered the narrow stairs that led up to the church bell tower. If she could get inside without being seen. "Sheriff," Ezra continued, "this woman stole money from me. Train fare, money for her wedding dress, money I spent preparing for our marriage. She owes me over $50, Clara gasped. That was a lie. She had never taken a penny from him. But who would believe her word against his? She slipped through the back door of the church and carefully made her way to the bell tower stairs. Each step creaked softly, and she held her breath, sure they would hear her. But the men were too busy arguing with Pastor Williams to notice. From the bell tower, Clara could see everything. Ezra was pacing back and forth, his face red with anger. The sheriff looked uncomfortable, like he didn't really want to be there. "Look," the sheriff said, "even if she is here, I can't just drag a woman back to marry someone she doesn't want to marry. That's not how the law works. She signed a contract." Ezra pulled out a folded paper and waved it in the air. "This is a legal agreement. She owes me money and she will fulfill her obligations as my wife." Clara shuddered. The way he said obligations made her skin crawl. Just then, the church door burst open and Lucy came running in. She stopped short when she saw the two strange men and Pastor Williams, looking tense. "Pastor Williams, is everything all right?" Lucy asked in her clear, brave little voice. Ezra turned to look at her, and his expression changed slightly. Even he wasn't cruel enough to be truly harsh with a child. "Little girl, have you seen a woman about this tall with brown hair?" "Her name is Clara." Lucy tilted her head to one side as if she was thinking very hard. I see lots of people. Can you tell me more about her?" "She would have arrived about 2 weeks ago. She might have seemed upset or nervous." "Oh," Lucy said, as if she had just remembered something. "Yes, there was a lady like that. But she didn't stay here." Clara's mouth fell open. Lucy was lying to protect her. This brave little girl was standing up to 2 grown men to keep her safe. "Where did she go?" Ezra demanded. Lucy shrugged. "She asked about the next town west. I think she was heading to Colorado to find her sister." The sheriff looked relieved. "Well, there you have it. She's moved on." But Ezra wasn't satisfied. "I want to search this church. If she's hiding here, you'll do no such thing. Pastor Williams." stepped forward, and though he was old and frail, there was steel in his voice. This is God's house, and these walls have provided sanctuary for over 40 years. No one will be dragged from here against their will. Sanctuary? Ezra laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. This isn't the Middle Ages, old man. Perhaps. Not, Pastor Williams said quietly, but some things don't change. The right of people to seek safety from those who would harm them is older than any law you might quote. From her hiding place, Clara watched in amazement as the elderly pastor faced down Ezra's anger. Pastor Williams looked small and fragile next to Ezra's bulk, but he stood his ground. Lucy moved to stand beside Pastor Williams, slipping her small hand into his. My papa always said that mean people are usually scared people, she said, looking directly at Ezra. What are you scared of, mister? Ezra's face turned an even deeper shade of red. I'm not scared of anything, especially not a mouthy little girl and a worn-out preacher. Then why are you shouting? Lucy asked innocently. The sheriff cleared his throat. Look, Mr. Hutchins, the child says the woman left town. We've done what we came to do. If you want to pursue this further, you'll need to do it through the proper legal channels. Ezra glared at Pastor Williams and Lucy for a long moment. This isn't over, he said finally. If I find out you're lying to me, We're not liars, Lucy said firmly. Lying is a sin. After the men left, Clara waited a full 10 minutes before coming down from the bell tower. Her legs were shaking so badly she could barely walk. Pastor Williams and Lucy were sitting in the front pew, talking quietly. Is he gone? Clara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lucy jumped up and ran to hug her. We sent him away. I told him you went to Colorado. Lucy, you lied for me. I don't want you to get in trouble because of my problems. I didn't lie, Lucy said with a grin. I said there was a lady who asked about the next town west. I didn't say it was you, and I didn't say when she left. Pastor Williams chuckled despite the seriousness of the situation. The child has a point. She may have bent the truth, but she didn't break it. Clara sank into a pew, feeling overwhelmed. He said I stole money from him. That's not true. I never took anything that wasn't mine. I believe you, Pastor Williams said simply. That man has anger in his heart. Angry people often say things that aren't true to justify their actions. But what if he comes back? What if he brings more men? I can't put you and Lucy in danger. Lucy climbed up onto the pew beside Clara and took her hand. We're family now, remember? Families protect each other. But Lucy, no buts, the little girl said firmly. When my mama and papa got sick, the whole town helped take care of them. When they died, Pastor Williams took me in even though he didn't have to. That's what people do when they care about each other. Pastor Williams nodded. Lucy's right. You're not alone in this, Clara, and that man, whoever he is, doesn't have the right to force you into a marriage you don't want. Clara felt tears running down her cheeks. I'm scared. What if he takes me back? What if the sheriff decides to believe his lies? Then we'll figure out what to do when that happens, Pastor Williams said. But we won't let fear make our decisions for us. Fear makes people do foolish things, Lucy squeezed Clara's hand. Besides, I have a good feeling about this. My mama always said that good things happen when people stand up for what's right. That night, Clara lay awake in the church loft, listening to every sound outside. Every creak of the wind, every rustle of leaves made her heart race. But gradually, the steady sound of Pastor Williams's gentle snoring and the knowledge that Lucy was safe in her bed below began to calm her nerves. She thought about what Lucy had said, that families protect each other. Clara had never really had that before. Her parents had died when she was young, and her aunt had been kind but distant. She had never known what it felt like to have people willing to stand up for her, willing to face danger to keep her safe. Ezra might come back. The sheriff might decide to believe his lies. Clara might have to run again. But for the first time since she had stepped off that train, she wasn't facing her fears alone. She had a family now, an old man with a big heart and a little girl, with more courage than most adults. And if Ezra Hutchins thought he could intimidate them into giving her up, He was about to learn just how strong a real family could be. 3 weeks passed without any sign of Ezra Hutchins, and Clara began to hope that maybe he had given up his search. She threw herself into helping Pastor Williams with his church duties, grateful to have something useful to do. It started when she noticed Pastor Williams struggling to read his own handwriting during Sunday service. His eyesight was getting worse and his handwriting had become shaky with age. After the service, Clara offered to help him rewrite his sermons in clearer letters. "You have beautiful handwriting," Pastor Williams said, watching her work. "Have you ever thought about teaching?" Clara looked up from the paper. "Teaching? I've never thought about that. The town has been without a proper school teacher for months. The last one moved away to get married, and we haven't been able to find a replacement. The children have been doing their lessons with whoever can spare time to help them." Lucy bounced excitedly in her chair. "Oh, Clara, you should teach. You're so smart and you explain things really well." The idea intrigued Clara. She had always enjoyed reading and learning, and she did seem to have a knack for explaining things in ways that made sense. "But I don't have any formal training as a teacher." "Neither did half the teachers on the frontier," Pastor Williams said with a smile. "What matters is that you care about children and you want to help them learn. Everything else can be figured out." The next day, Clara walked through town with Lucy, meeting some of the local families. Willowbrook was small, but there were 15 children of school age who needed proper lessons. Their first stop was the Henderson farm. Mrs. Henderson was hanging laundry while trying to keep an eye on her 3 young children. She looked tired and overwhelmed. "Mrs. Henderson," Lucy called out, "this is Clara. She might be our new teacher." Mrs. Henderson straightened up, pushing a strand of graying hair out of her face. "A teacher? Oh, that would be wonderful. My oldest, Ben, is already 10 and he can barely read. I try to help him, but between the farm work and the little ones." Clara spent an hour talking with Ben, a shy boy who was embarrassed about his reading struggles. She quickly realized he wasn't slow or lazy. He just needed someone to take the time to help him sound out words properly. "You're doing fine, Ben," Clara encouraged him as they worked through a simple story together. "Reading is like building a house. You have to lay one word at a time, like laying bricks." Ben's face lit up when he successfully read an entire sentence without help. "I did it. Did you see, Mama? I read the whole thing." Mrs. Henderson wiped her eyes with her apron. "I haven't seen him that excited about reading ever." As they visited more families, Clara discovered that each child had different needs and different ways of learning. Little Annie Patterson, no relation to Lucy, was only 6 but could already read better than some of the older children. Twin brothers Jake and Joel struggled with their numbers but were brilliant at solving practical problems. "I think you have a real gift for this," Pastor Williams told Clara that evening as she described her day. "Teaching isn't just about knowing facts. It's about understanding people." Clara felt a warm glow of satisfaction. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly good at something important. The following week, Clara began holding informal lessons in the church. She had no books or proper supplies, but she made do with what she had. She wrote lessons on pieces of wood with charcoal when she ran out of paper. She used beans and corn kernels to teach arithmetic. She told stories to help the children remember history and geography. Lucy became her unofficial assistant, helping the younger children and encouraging the shy ones. The little girl had a natural way with other children that amazed Clara. "Lucy, you're wonderful with them," Clara said one afternoon as they cleaned up after lessons. "You might make a fine teacher yourself someday." Lucy beamed with pride. "Really? I'd like that. I want to help people just like you and Pastor Williams do." One evening, as Clara was planning the next day's lessons, a loud knock came at the door. Pastor Williams answered it to find Tom Henderson standing outside, hat in hand, and looking worried. "Pastor, I need help. My wife. The baby's coming, but something's wrong. The midwife is in the next town helping another birth, and I don't know what to do." Clara's heart raced. She had never delivered a baby, but she had helped when her neighbor's children were born back home. "I'll come with you," she said, grabbing her shawl. Clara, you don't have to, Pastor Williams started. Yes, I do. Mrs. Henderson has been kind to me, and she needs help. The ride to the Henderson farm seemed to take forever. When they arrived, Clara could hear Mrs. Henderson crying out in pain from inside the house. Tom paced outside, too nervous to go in. Clara found Mrs. Henderson in her bedroom, frightened and alone except for young Ben, who was trying to comfort his mother while watching his two little sisters. "Ben, you're being so brave," Clara told him. "Can you take your sisters to the kitchen and keep them busy? I'll take care of your mama." For the next 3 hours, Clara stayed with Mrs. Henderson, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool water, and encouraging her when the pain got too bad. She had seen births before, but being responsible for helping was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. When baby Catherine Henderson finally arrived, healthy and screaming loudly, Clara felt a joy she had never experienced before. Mrs. Henderson cried with relief and happiness. "Clara, I don't know how to thank you," Mrs. Henderson whispered, holding her new daughter. "You saved us both?" "I just did what anyone would do," Clara said, but inside she felt proud and useful in a way she had never felt before. Word of Clara's help with the birth spread quickly through the small town. People who had been polite but cautious before began to treat her like she truly belonged in Willowbrook. Women stopped her on the street to chat. Men tipped their hats respectfully. Children ran up to greet her when they saw her coming. "You're becoming quite the important lady in town," Pastor Williams observed with a smile. Clara laughed. "I'm just trying to help where I can." "That's exactly what makes you important," Lucy said seriously. "Important people are the ones who help other people." But not everyone in town was happy with Clara's growing acceptance. One afternoon, as she was walking back from the general store, Clara overheard two women talking. "I still say there's something strange about her," one woman sighed. "A young woman traveling alone, no family, no background anyone knows about? It's not natural." "Maybe," the other woman replied, "but she's done nothing but good since she's been here. My Johnny has learned more in the past month than he learned all last year." Clara hurried past before they could see her, but their words stung. She had been careful not to tell anyone about her past, about Ezra, or the marriage contract. What would they think if they knew the truth? That evening, as she helped Lucy with her reading, Clara found herself distracted. "Clara, what's wrong?" Lucy asked, looking up from her book. "You seem sad." Clara hesitated. She had been protecting Lucy from the whole truth about her past, but the little girl was wise beyond her years. Maybe it was time for honesty. "Lucy, there are things about my past that I haven't told you. Things that some people might not understand or approve of." Lucy closed her book and looked at Clara seriously. "Are you going to tell me now?" Clara took a deep breath. "I was supposed to be a mail-order bride." "Do you know what that means?" Lucy nodded. "That's when a woman agrees to marry a man she's never met, usually because she needs a place to live and he needs a wife." "That's right. And some people think that women who become mail-order brides are, well, not respectable." Lucy was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, "Were you trying to do something bad when you agreed to marry that man?" "No. I was trying to survive. I had no money and nowhere to go." "And when you found out he was—" "Mean you decided not to marry him?" "Yes," Lucy nodded firmly. "Then you made good choices. People who think bad things about you for making good choices are just being silly." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. This child's simple wisdom and unconditional acceptance meant more to her than all the approval of the rest of the town combined. "Thank you, Lucy. You always know exactly what to say." "That's what sisters are for," Lucy said with a grin, and went back to her reading as if their conversation had been about the weather. Clara realized then that she had found something in Willowbrook that she had never had before, not just acceptance, but belonging. She had work that mattered, people who cared about her, and a little girl who called her sister. For the first time since her parents died, Clara felt like she was truly home. Clara thought she had been careful about keeping her past secret, but she had underestimated how observant Lucy was. The little girl noticed everything, including the worried looks Clara got whenever strangers came to town, and the way she sometimes stopped talking mid-sentence when certain topics came up. It all came to a head on a warm Thursday afternoon in late summer. Clara was in Pastor Williams's study, helping him organize church records, when Lucy came running in from playing outside. "Pastor Williams? Clara? There's a man at the general store asking questions about Clara." Clara's blood went cold. "What kind of questions?" "Mrs. Baker said he wanted to know how long you'd been in town and where you came from." She told him it wasn't any of his business, but he said he was looking for his missing wife. "Pastor Williams," and Clara exchanged worried glances. "Did you see this man, Lucy?" Pastor Williams asked. "Just from far away." He was tall and had dark hair, and he looked angry even when Mrs. Baker was being polite to him. Clara's hands started shaking. It had to be Ezra. He had come back, and this time he was being more careful about how he asked questions. "Clara, we need to talk about what to do," Pastor Williams said gently. "I know what I have to do," Clara said, her voice barely a whisper. "I have to leave. If I stay, I'll bring trouble to you and Lucy, and I can't do that." "Leave?" Lucy's voice was small and frightened. "But you're our family now." Clara knelt down to Lucy's level, her heart breaking. "I am your family, and that's exactly why I have to go. This man, he's dangerous, Lucy. He wants to force me to marry him, and he'll hurt anyone who tries to help me." Lucy's green eyes filled with tears, but she lifted her chin stubbornly. "Then we'll all go. We'll pack up and leave together." "Oh, sweetheart," Clara said, pulling Lucy into a hug. "Pastor Williams can't just leave. This is his church, his home. And you belong here in Willowbrook. I belong with you," Lucy said fiercely. "You can't just leave me." Pastor Williams cleared his throat. "Perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's think about this carefully. Clara, it's time you told us the whole truth about your situation. We can't help you properly if we don't understand what we're dealing with." Clara looked at Lucy's tear-stained face and Pastor Williams's kind, concerned expression. These people had become her family, and they deserved to know the truth. "All right," she said, sitting down heavily in a chair. "I'll tell you everything." For the next hour, Clara told them about her parents' death, her life with her aunt, the desperate poverty after her aunt died, and the decision to become a mail-order bride. She told them about Ezra's letters, how they had grown increasingly controlling and frightening. She told them about the money he claimed she owed him, and how he had threatened to have her arrested if she didn't fulfill the marriage contract. "So you see," Clara finished, "he has legal papers, a contract with my signature, and he's told the sheriff that I stole money from him. Even if it's not true, it's his word against mine." Lucy had listened to every word without interrupting. Now she stood up and walked over to Clara's chair. "Clara," she said in her serious little girl voice, "do you remember what you told Ben Henderson when he was having trouble reading?" Clara blinked, confused by the change of subject. Yes, I told him that reading was like building a house. You lay one word at a time like bricks." "That's right." "And what did you tell Annie when she was scared to try writing her own story?" "I told her that being scared doesn't mean you can't do something. It just means you do it while you're scared," Lucy nodded. "And what did you tell me when I was worried about Pastor Williams getting older and what would happen to us?" Clara's eyes filled with tears as she remembered. "I told you that families stick together and figure things out as they go." "So," Lucy said, crossing her arms, "why are you trying to run away instead of doing what you taught us to do?" Pastor Williams chuckled despite the seriousness of the situation. "The child has a point, Clara. You've been teaching all of us about courage and facing problems together. Don't you think it's time to take your own advice?" Clara felt ashamed. Lucy was right. She had been so quick to run at the first sign of trouble, just like she had run from Ezra in the first place. "But what if he takes me away? What if he convinces the sheriff to arrest me?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Lucy said firmly. "But we won't let him take you without a fight." "Lucy, you don't understand. He's a grown man, and I'm just a woman with no money and no family. The law isn't always fair to people like me." "Maybe not," Pastor Williams said thoughtfully, "but you're not the same person who ran away from Cedar Falls 2 months ago. You're a teacher now, You're a respected member of this community. You've helped deliver a baby and taught children to read. You have people here who will speak up for you." Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "Mrs. Henderson says you saved her and—" "Baby Catherine. Mr. Baker says his son has never been happier about school, Mrs. Peterson says. You helped her fix her roof when the storm damaged it. Everybody likes you." Clara felt a tiny spark of hope. "You really think people would stand up for me?" "I know they would," Pastor Williams said confidently. "But more than that, you need to stand up for yourself. Running away might seem easier, but it's not solving the problem. This man will keep chasing you as long as he thinks he can frighten you into submission." That evening, as they ate dinner, Lucy was unusually quiet. Finally, she put down her fork and looked at Clara. "I have to tell you something," she said. "I already knew about the mail-order bride thing." Clara nearly choked on her soup. "What?" "I heard you and Pastor Williams talking about it a few weeks ago." "I wasn't trying to spy, but I was coming to ask about something, and I heard you say the words marriage contract." Clara felt her cheeks burn red. "Lucy, why didn't you say anything?" Lucy shrugged. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. And besides, it doesn't change anything. I knew you were running from something bad, and I knew you were a good person. The details didn't matter." Pastor Williams smiled. "You continue to amaze me, Lucy. That's very mature thinking." "I've been thinking about other things too," Lucy continued. "Like how we can help Clara fight back against this mean man." "Oh?" Clara leaned forward. "What kind of things?" Lucy grinned, and for a moment she looked exactly like the mischievous child she was. "Well, first of all, we need to talk to Thomas." "Thomas?" Clara asked. "Thomas Mitchell. He's the school teacher from the next town over who comes here sometimes to help with lessons. He likes you, Clara, a lot." Clara felt her face get even redder. "Lucy, it's true. Every time he comes to town, he asks about you, and he always finds excuses to talk to you. And you like him too. I can tell because you get all nervous and start fixing your hair when you see him coming." Pastor Williams chuckled. "Lucy's right about Thomas. He's a good man, and he's definitely interested in you, Clara." Clara had noticed. Thomas, of course. He was kind and gentle, with warm brown eyes and the way of talking to children that showed he genuinely cared about them. But she had been so focused on hiding her past that she hadn't allowed herself to think about the possibility. "Oh, well, possibilities. What does Thomas have to do with my problem with Ezra?" Clara asked. Lucy and Pastor Williams exchanged a look that Clara didn't understand. "Well," Lucy said carefully, "married women have more legal rights than unmarried women, and married women can't be forced to marry other people." Clara's mouth fell open. "Lucy, are you suggesting—" "I'm just saying," Lucy said innocently, "that Thomas is nice and you're nice. And maybe if you told him about your problem, he might have ideas about how to help." Clara looked back and forth between Lucy and Pastor Williams, hardly believing what she was hearing. "You two have been plotting, haven't you?" "Not plotting," Pastor Williams said with a smile. "Just planning. Sometimes when you're facing a big problem, you need to think about all your options." Clara leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed. A month ago, she had been alone and terrified, running from a man who wanted to control her. Now, she was sitting in a warm kitchen with people who loved her, talking about ways to fight back instead of ways to run away. "I can't ask Thomas to marry me just to solve my legal problems," Clara said. "That wouldn't be fair to him." "You're right," Lucy agreed. "But you could ask him to help you figure out what your legal options are. And if he happens to mention that he'd like to court you properly, quotes," she grinned. "Well, that would be up to him, wouldn't it?" Clara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, practical hope based on people who cared about her and wanted to help her build a life instead of just survive from day to day. "All right," she said finally. "Let's talk to Thomas. But first, I want to talk to some of the other families in town. If I'm going to fight for my place here, I want to know where I stand." Lucy jumped up and hugged her tightly. "Now you're thinking like the Clara I know. The one who teaches children to be brave." Clara hugged the little girl back, feeling stronger than she had in months. Lucy was right. It was time to stop running and start fighting for the life she wanted to build. The crisis came sooner than any of them expected. 3 days after Clara had decided to stop running and start fighting, Pastor Williams collapsed during Sunday morning service. Clara was playing the small organ when she heard the thud behind her. She turned to see Pastor Williams on the floor, his face pale and his breathing shallow. The congregation erupted in worried voices as people rushed forward to help. "Someone ride for the doctor?" Clara called out, kneeling beside the unconscious minister. Lucy appeared at her side, her small face frightened but determined. "Is he going to be all right?" Lucy whispered. Clara felt Pastor Williams's forehead. It was burning with fever. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we're going to take good care of him." Dr. Morrison arrived within an hour and examined Pastor Williams in his bedroom. When he came out to speak with Clara and Lucy, his expression was grave. "He has pneumonia," the doctor said quietly. "At his age and in his weakened condition, well, we need to prepare for the possibility that he might not recover." Lucy grabbed Clara's hand so tightly it hurt. "He has to get better. He has to—" "We'll do everything we can," Dr. Morrison assured them. "But he'll need constant care for the next several weeks. Someone needs to stay with him around the clock." Clara didn't hesitate. "I'll take care of him." "Clara," Dr. Morrison said gently, "you should know that the church board will need to make some decisions if Pastor Williams is too ill to continue his duties. And there may be questions about living arrangements." Clara's stomach dropped. She knew exactly what he meant. An unmarried woman living alone with a child, even temporarily, would cause talk. And if Pastor Williams died, what kind of questions? She asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. "The church will need to decide what to do about Lucy. Pastor Williams never officially adopted her and with no legal guardian." He trailed off, but Clara understood. "They'd send her to an orphanage," Clara said, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. "It's the most likely outcome, yes. Unless someone else in town is willing and able to take her in." That night, as Clara sat beside Pastor Williams's bed, sponging his fevered forehead with cool water, Lucy climbed up into the chair beside her. "Clara, I'm scared," Lucy admitted in a small voice. "I know, sweetheart, I'm scared too. If Pastor Williams dies, they'll try to send me away, won't they?" Clara's heart broke at the matter-of-fact way Lucy said it. This little girl had already lost so much, and now she was facing the possibility of losing the only home she had left. "I won't let that happen," Clara said fiercely. "I promise you, Lucy, I will not let them send you away. But how can you stop them? You're not married, and you don't have any money saved up. The church board won't let you adopt me." Clara was quiet for a moment, thinking. Lucy was right. As an unmarried woman with no substantial income, Clara had no legal standing to adopt a child, but there might be another way. "Lucy, what if I told you I had an idea? Something that might solve both our problems?" Lucy looked up at her hopefully. "What kind of idea?" Before Clara could answer, there was a soft knock at the door. Clara opened it to find Thomas Mitchell standing on the doorstep, hat in hand, and worry written all over his face. "I heard about Pastor Williams," he said quietly. "How is he?" "Not good," Clara admitted, stepping aside to let him in. "The doctor says it's pneumonia." Thomas's face grew grave. He had always respected Pastor Williams, and the two men had become friends over the months Thomas had been helping with teaching duties. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Thomas asked. Clara looked at Lucy, who was watching the conversation with bright, intelligent eyes. This might be the perfect opportunity to discuss the idea that had been forming in her mind. "Actually, Thomas, there is something, but it's single quotes complicated." They sat around the kitchen table while Pastor Williams slept fitfully in the next room. Clara explained about the church board's likely decision regarding Lucy, and about her own precarious position as an unmarried woman with no family. "I see," Thomas said thoughtfully when she finished. "And what's your idea for solving these problems?" Clara took a deep breath. This was the most difficult conversation she had ever had to have. Thomas, I need to ask you something, and I want you to know that I'll understand completely if your answer is no. All right. Would you consider marrying me? Not for love, she added quickly, seeing his surprised expression. For practical reasons. If I were married, I could adopt Lucy legally. And you've mentioned before that the school board in your town has been pressuring you to find a wife. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, and Clara's heart sank. She had probably just ruined their friendship by suggesting such a cold, businesslike arrangement. Clara, Thomas said finally, I'm honored that you would trust me with such a request. But I have to ask, is a marriage of convenience really what you want? Clara felt her cheeks burn. I want Lucy to be safe and to stay with me? If that means entering into a practical marriage arrangement, then yes, that's what I want. But what about love? What about partnership and companionship and all the things that make marriage worthwhile? Lucy, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. Thomas, can I ask you something? Of course, Lucy. Do you like Clara? Thomas smiled. Very much. Do you think she's pretty? Very pretty. Do you think she's smart and kind and good with children? All of those things, yes. Lucy nodded as if she had proven an important point. And Clara, do you like Thomas? Clara squirmed uncomfortably. Lucy, that's not the point. Do you? Lucy insisted. Yes, Clara admitted quietly. I do like him very much. Do you think he's handsome? Despite everything, Clara found herself smiling. Yes. Do you think he's smart and kind and good with children? Yes. Lucy sat back in her chair with satisfaction. So you both like each other, and you both think the other person is nice and good-looking? How is that different from love? Thomas. And Clara stared at each other across the table. Clara realized that Lucy, in her simple, childlike way, had pointed out something Clara had been afraid to admit to herself. Her feelings for Thomas had grown beyond mere friendship, but she had been so focused on solving practical problems that she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge it. Lucy has a point, Thomas said gently. Clara, if we're going to discuss marriage, shouldn't we be honest about our feelings? Clara felt tears sting her eyes. Thomas, I can't ask you to marry me for love when I come with so many problems. There's still, the matter of Ezra Hutchins. He's in town asking questions, and he has legal papers claiming I owe him money. If you marry me, you could get caught up in that mess. Thomas reached across the table and took her hand. Clara, let me worry about Ezra Hutchins. I'm not afraid of bullies, and I won't let anyone force you into a marriage you don't want. But the scandal. What scandal? A man and woman who care about each other getting married? That's not scandalous, Clara. That's normal. Just then, Pastor Williams called weakly from the bedroom. Clara rushed to his side and found him trying to sit. Up, Pastor Williams, you need to rest, she said, gently pushing him back down onto the pillows. Clara. Lucy, are you both all right? We're fine. Thomas is here too. Pastor Williams's eyes brightened slightly. Thomas, good. I need to tell you something important. Thomas appeared in the doorway. I'm here, Pastor Williams. If something happens to me, Lucy needs a family. Legal family. Clara loves her like a daughter, but the law. I understand, Thomas said quietly. And I want you to know that I'll do everything I can to make sure Lucy stays with Clara. Pastor Williams managed a weak smile. You're a good man, Thomas. Clara, you could do worse than marrying this one. Clara felt her face burn red again, but she also felt a warmth in her chest. Even in his illness, Pastor Williams was looking out for her and Lucy over the next few days. As Clara cared for Pastor Williams around the clock, Thomas became a regular visitor. He brought food, helped with chores, and spent time reading too. Lucy, when Clara was too tired to do anything but rest. On the fourth day, Dr. Morrison delivered more bad news. Pastor Williams was getting weaker, and the church board had called a meeting to discuss the future of the church and, more specifically, what to do about Lucy. They're meeting tomorrow evening, Dr. Morrison told Clara quietly. I thought you should know. That night, as Clara sat beside Pastor Williams's bed, Thomas found her there. Clara, we need to talk, he said gently. I know, The church board meeting. Yes, if we're going to do this, if we're going to get married so you can adopt Lucy, we need to do it soon. Before they make any decisions about sending her away. Clara looked at Pastor Williams's pale, sleeping face and then at Thomas's kind, determined expression. Are you sure about this, Thomas? Really sure, because once we're married, there's no going back. Thomas smiled and took her hand. Clara, I've been trying to work up the courage to court you properly for months. The fact that marrying you would also help Lucy and solve your legal problems with Hutchins is just well, it's Providence. So you're saying you want to marry me? Not just to help with my problems, but because you actually want to be married. To me? Yes, Thomas said simply. I love you, Clara. I think I have for weeks, but I was too afraid to say anything because I thought you might not be ready for that kind of relationship after what you've been through. The church board meeting was set for Thursday evening, but Ezra Hutchins arrived in Willowbrook on Wednesday morning, and this time he wasn't alone. Clara was hanging laundry behind the church when Lucy came running around the corner, her face pale with fear. Clara, that mean man is back, and he has 3 other men with him. They're at the sheriff's office right now. Clara's hands started shaking as she dropped the wet sheet she had been holding. She had known this moment would come, but she still wasn't prepared for it. Where's Thomas? Clara asked. He rode to the next town to get the marriage license. He won't be back until this afternoon. Clara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had to handle this herself, at least until Thomas returned. Lucy, I want you to stay inside with Pastor Williams. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Do you understand? But Clara, promise me, Lucy, please. Lucy's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. I promise, but you be careful. Clara walked around to the front of the church just as Ezra and the sheriff approached. The 2 other men with them looked like hired muscle, big, rough men who were clearly there to intimidate anyone who might try to help her. There she is, as Ezra said, pointing at Clara. That's my wife. I am not your wife, Clara said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I never married you. The sheriff, a middle-aged man named Peterson, looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, this gentleman has a signed contract stating that you agreed to marry him. He also claims you stole money from him. I never stole anything, Clara said firmly. And I changed my mind about the marriage. That's my right. Ezra stepped forward, his face red with anger. You signed a legal contract. You took my money for train fare and wedding expenses. I never took a penny from you, and you know it, Clara shot back. I paid my own train fare with money I earned working for my aunt. Prove it, one of Ezra's companions said with a nasty grin. Clara's heart sank. How could she prove something like that? She had no receipts, no witnesses from her old life. Just then, the church door opened and several people came out. Mrs. Henderson, carrying baby Catherine, Mr. Baker from the general store. The Peterson family, no relation to the sheriff, with 5 of their children, Mrs. Williams, the doctor's wife. Within minutes, nearly half the town had gathered in front of the church. What's going on here? Mrs. Henderson asked, her voice sharp with concern. These men are trying to force Clara to go with them, came a young voice from the church steps. Clara turned to see Lucy standing in the doorway, her chin raised defiantly. Lucy, I told you to stay inside, Clara said. I know what you told me, Lucy replied. But I also know what's right and what's wrong, and this is wrong. Mrs. Henderson stepped forward, still holding her baby. Sheriff Peterson, what's this about? The sheriff cleared his throat. This man claims Miss Whitman is legally bound to marry him and that she stole money from him. That's ridiculous, Mr. Baker said loudly. Clara Whitman is the most honest person in this town. She's never stolen so much as a penny candy from my store. Ezra glared at him. You don't know anything about this woman? She's a runaway, a thief, and a liar? That's enough, came a firm voice from the back of the crowd. Thomas was pushing through the gathered townspeople, his face grim with determination. I won't have you speaking about my fiancée that way. Clara's heart leaped. Thomas was back, and he had called her his fiancée in front of everyone. Ezra's eyes narrowed. Fiancée? She's already promised to me. Thomas stepped up beside Clara and took her hand. Not any more. Clara has agreed to marry me, and I have the marriage license right here to prove it. He pulled an official-looking document from his jacket. Pocket, that doesn't matter, Ezra snarled. She signed a contract with me first. The law says a lot of things, interrupted a new voice. Everyone turned to see Judge Harrison, the circuit judge who visited Willowbrook once a month, walking up the street. And I happened to be in town early for tomorrow's court session when I heard there was a dispute that needed settling. Clara felt a surge of hope. Judge Harrison was known for being fair and for having no patience with men who tried to bully women. Your Honor, Ezra said, quickly changing his tone to one of false respect. This woman signed a legal marriage contract with me. She's trying to break it to marry someone else. Judge Harrison looked at the document Ezra handed him, then at Clara. Miss Whitman, is this your signature? Yes, sir, Clara said quietly. But I signed it under duress, and I never received any money from Mr. Hutchins. When I realized what kind of man he was, I decided I couldn't go through with the marriage. What kind of man I was? Ezra exploded. I never did anything to you. I never even met you. No, but your letters made it very clear what you expected from a wife, Clara said, finding her courage. You wrote that I would not be allowed to leave the farm without your permission. You said I must never speak unless spoken to when you had company. You said that wives must obey their husbands in all things, no matter what those things might be. Judge Harrison raised an eyebrow. Do you still have these letters, Miss Whitman? Yes, sir, they're in my belongings. I'd like to see them. Sheriff Peterson, would you mind fetching these letters? While they waited, Lucy stepped forward. Clara tried to stop her, but the little girl was determined. Your Honor, Lucy said in her clear, brave voice, can I say something? Judge Harrison smiled. Of course, young lady. What's your name? Lucy Patterson. Clara has been taking care of me since Pastor Williams got sick. She's the best person I know, and she's never lied about anything. If she says this man is mean, then he's mean. Lucy, Ezra said, his voice falsely sweet, little girls shouldn't get involved in grown-up business. Lucy fixed him with a stare that was surprisingly fierce for an 8-year-old. I'm not just any little girl. My mama and Papa taught me to recognize good people and bad people. And you're a bad person. Lucy! Clara gasped, but Judge Harrison chuckled. Go on, Miss Patterson. What makes you think Mr. Hutchins is a bad person? Good people don't try to force other people to do things they don't want to do, Lucy said. Simply. And good people don't tell lies about money being stolen when no money was stolen. And good people don't bring big scary men to frighten someone who's smaller than them. Ezra's face was getting redder by the minute. I won't be lectured by a child. Then perhaps you'd prefer to be lectured by me, Mrs. Henderson said, stepping forward with her baby still in her arms. Clara Whitman saved my life and my daughter's life when Catherine was born. She sat with me for hours, held my hand, and helped bring my baby safely into the world. That's the kind of person she is. She's been teaching our children to read and write, added Mr. Peterson. My youngest son has learned more in 2 months with Clara than he learned in the previous year. She helped fix my roof after the storm, sighed Mrs. Williams. Climbed right up there with the hammer and nails, even though she was scared of heights. She organized the food drive for the Johnson family when their barn burned down, called out someone from the back of the crowd, one. By one, people began sharing stories about how Clara had helped them. The crowd grew larger as more townspeople heard what was happening and came to see what the commotion was about. Sheriff Peterson returned with Clara's letters and handed them to Judge Harrison. The judge read them silently, his expression growing, more stern with each page. Mr. Hutchins, Judge Harrison said finally, these letters paint a very disturbing picture of what kind of marriage you were planning. No woman should be expected to live under such conditions. Those are perfectly normal expectations for a wife. Ezra protested. Perhaps in your opinion, Judge Harrison said coldly, but not according to the law. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, not ownership. And as for the matter of the alleged theft, he looked at Ezra sternly. Do you have any proof that Miss Whitman took money from you? The train ticket. Did you buy her a train ticket? Well, no, but did you send her money for a wedding dress? No, but I was planning to. Then what exactly did she steal from you? Ezra's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She broke our contract. A contract for marriage, not slavery, Judge Harrison said firmly. Miss Whitman had every right to change her mind, especially after receiving letters that suggested she would be treated as property rather than as a wife. Thomas squeezed Clara's hand. She could hardly believe what was happening. The judge was actually listening to her, believing her. Furthermore, Judge Harrison continued, I see here that Miss Whitman and Mr. Mitchell have a valid marriage license. Miss Whitman, do you wish to marry Mr. Mitchell of your own free will? Yes, Your Honor, Clara said, her voice strong and clear. Mr. Mitchell, do you wish to marry Miss Whitman of your own free will? Yes, Your Honor, Judge Harrison smiled. Then I see no reason why this marriage cannot proceed. As for you, Mr. Hutchins, I suggest you return to Cedar Falls and find yourself a wife who actually wants to marry you. If you continue to harass Miss Whitman or any member of this community, I will have you arrested for disturbing the peace. Ezra's face was purple with rage, but he knew he was beaten. This isn't over, he said to Clara. Yes, it is, Thomas said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. Clara is under my protection now, and I won't let anyone hurt her. Lucy stepped up beside them. And she's under my... The morning of Clara and Thomas's wedding dawned bright and clear, as if the whole world was celebrating with them. Clara woke up in the church loft for what would be the last time, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. Lucy was already awake, sitting by the window and looking out at the town. Clara, are you scared? She asked without turning around. A little, Clara admitted, sitting up and smoothing her hair. But it's a good kind of scared. Like when you're about to do something wonderful, but you're not sure exactly how it will. Turn out. Lucy turned to face her, and Clara was surprised to see tears in the little girl's eyes. What's wrong, sweetheart? I'm so happy, Lucy said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. When Mama and Papa died, I thought I would never have a real family again. And now I'm going to have you and Thomas, and we're going to be together forever. Clara's own eyes filled with tears as she pulled Lucy into a hug. We're going to be together forever, she promised. That's what families do. They climbed down from the loft to find Pastor Williams sitting up in bed. For the first time in a week. He was still pale and weak, but his eyes were bright with determination. Pastor Williams, Lucy exclaimed, you're awake. I'm not missing this wedding, he said firmly. Dr. Morrison can fuss all he wants, but I'm performing this ceremony myself. Clara rushed to his side. Are you sure you're strong enough? Clara, my dear girl, I have been a minister for 43 years. I have performed weddings in snowstorms, during tornado warnings, and once even while standing in 3 inches of floodwater. A little pneumonia is not going to keep me from marrying you and Thomas. Dr. Morrison arrived an hour later and was not pleased to find his patient out of bed. But after examining Pastor Williams, he grudgingly admitted that the old minister was strong enough to perform a short ceremony. But you go straight back to bed afterward, Dr. Morrison warned. No exceptions. Meanwhile, the women of Willowbrook had taken over the wedding preparations with an enthusiasm that amazed. Clara, Mrs. Henderson arrived with a beautiful white dress that had belonged to her sister, Mrs. Baker brought. Flowers from her garden, Mrs. Peterson and her daughters had spent the early morning hours decorating the church with ribbons and candles. You don't have to do all this, Clara protested as the women bustled around her, pinning up her hair and adjusting the dress. Nonsense, Mrs. Henderson said firmly. You're family now, and family takes care of each other. Besides, it's been far too long since we've had a proper wedding celebration in this town. Lucy had appointed herself as the official wedding coordinator, rushing back and forth between the church and the pastor's house, making sure everything was perfect. She had picked wildflowers to carry as a bouquet and had convinced Mrs. Williams to loan Clara her pearl earrings for the ceremony. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, Lucy recited seriously as she helped Clara get ready. The dress is borrowed, the flowers are new, the earrings are old, and ... She pulled a blue ribbon from her pocket. "I want you to wear this in your hair. It was my mama's." Clara felt tears sting her eyes as Lucy tied the blue ribbon around the base of Clara's braid. "Lucy, are you sure? This must be very special to you." "It is special. But Mama always said that special things should be shared with the people you love most. And I love you most in the whole world, except for maybe Thomas and Pastor Williams and Mrs. Henderson's baby Catherine. Clara laughed through her tears. "I love you most in the whole world, too, Lucy." At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the church bells rang out across Willowbrook, calling everyone to the wedding. Clara was amazed to see how many people had come. It seemed like the entire town had turned out to celebrate with them. Thomas waited at the altar, handsome in his best suit and looking slightly nervous but very happy. When Clara walked down the aisle with Lucy at her side, his face lit up with such joy that Clara felt her own nervousness disappear completely. Pastor Williams, supported by Dr. Morrison and the church deacon, stood behind the altar with his worn Bible open in his shaking hands. His voice was weak but steady as he began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the joining of Clara Whitman and Thomas Mitchell in holy matrimony. As the familiar words washed over her, Clara thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. 6 months ago, she had been desperate and alone, running from a life she didn't want toward an uncertain future. Now she was standing in a church full of people who loved her, about to marry a man who saw her as a partner rather than property, with a little girl beside her who called her sister. "Thomas," Pastor Williams said, "do you take Clara to be your wife, to love and cherish her, to support her dreams and share her burdens for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Thomas said, his voice strong and sure. "Clara, do you take Thomas to be your husband, to love and cherish him, to support his dreams and share his burdens for as long as you both shall live?" Clara looked into Thomas's warm brown eyes and saw her future there, a future full of love, partnership, and the kind of happiness she had never dared to hope for. "I do," she said clearly. As Thomas slipped a simple gold band onto her finger, Clara felt the last of her fears fade away. She was no longer Clara Whitman, the runaway mail-order bride with no family and no home. She was Clara Mitchell, wife and soon-to-be mother, beloved member of a community that had chosen to accept her as she was. After Pastor Williams pronounced them husband and wife, and after Thomas had kissed her gently while the congregation cheered, Judge Harrison stepped forward. "If I may," he said with a smile, "I have some additional business to conduct today." He pulled out an official document. "Clara and Thomas Mitchell, you have petitioned the court to adopt Lucy Patterson. Based on my observations of your family and the testimony of this community regarding your character and your love for this child, I am pleased to grant your petition. Lucy, you are now officially Lucy Patterson Mitchell." Lucy burst into tears of joy and threw herself into Clara and Thomas's arms. The congregation erupted in cheers and applause. "We're really a family now," Lucy sobbed happily. "Really and truly and legally a family?" "We were always a family," Clara said, holding her tight. "Now we just have the papers to prove it." The celebration that followed was unlike anything Willowbrook had seen in years. Tables appeared as if by magic, loaded with food that the townspeople had been cooking all morning. Mr. Baker produced a fiddle and began playing lively dance music. Children ran around the churchyard, their laughter mixing with the adults' conversations and the music as evening approached and the celebration began to wind down. Clara found herself sitting on the church steps with Thomas and Lucy, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "What are you thinking about?" Thomas asked, taking her hand. "I'm thinking about how different my life is now compared to 6 months ago," Clara said. "Back then, I thought my only choice was between marrying a man who would treat me like property or being completely alone in the world. I never imagined that there was a third option." "What third option?" Lucy asked, snuggling closer to Clara's side. "Family," Clara said simply. "Real family, chosen family, the kind of family that's built on love and respect instead of just legal documents or blood relations." Thomas squeezed her hand. Speaking of family, we should probably discuss our plans. My teaching position in the next town. Oh, Clara sat up straighter. I hadn't thought about that. Will we have to move? Actually, I've been talking to the school board here in Willowbrook. They've offered me the permanent teaching position here, working alongside you. It seems the town has decided it needs 2 teachers instead of 1. Clara's heart leaped. Really? We can stay here? We can stay here, Thomas confirmed. As long as you want to, Lucy cheered. This is the best day ever. We get to stay in our home, and I get to keep all my friends, and Clara and Thomas get to teach all the children together. As they sat there watching the stars appear in the darkening sky, Pastor Williams called to them from his bedroom window. Clara, Thomas, come here for a moment. They found the old minister propped up in bed, looking tired but content. I wanted to give you something, he said, reaching into the drawer of his bedside table. He pulled out a small wooden box. This was my wife's. She died before you came to us, Clara, but I think she would have loved you like a daughter. Inside, the box was a delicate silver locket on a thin chain. It's beautiful, Clara breathed. She always said it should go to a woman who understood the true meaning of family. I can't think of anyone who fits that description better than you. Clara fastened the locket around her neck, adding it to the blue ribbon from Lucy and the pearl earrings from Mrs. Williams. She was wearing pieces of love from all the people who had become her family. Later that night, as Clara and Thomas settled into their new home, the small house next to the church that the town had quickly prepared for them, Lucy appeared in the doorway of their bedroom. I can't sleep, she said. I keep thinking this might all be a dream. Clara patted the bed beside her. Come here, sweetheart. Lucy climbed up between Clara and Thomas, and the 3 of them lay there in the darkness, listening to the peaceful sounds of their sleeping town.